All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Compass. I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for joining. Well, how we're going to start today is how we always start. We will start with some breathing, and then I will pull cards and I will share a little bit about the astrology, and then I will have our wonderful guest. I will introduce her after we do all that preliminary fun stuff with the cosmos. All right, so first things first, we're going to breathe. So taking a moment, and if you are not, if you're driving, walking, doing some work, and you can't close your eyes, not a problem, but you could just bring your awareness inward and just take a moment to, just acknowledge yourself being here, being present, breathing into your belly, and exhaling. And then breathing into the belly. On the next exhale through your mouth, relaxing jaw and shoulders, maybe even your hips and knees. And then taking your awareness all the way down your legs, down through your ankles, through your feet, and acknowledging the earth beneath you, acknowledging the earth for its groundedness, and then also acknowledging all those who have come before on this earth. This little piece of earth, as she says in The Secret Garden, this little piece of earth having an opportunity right now to connect with your little piece of earth and breathing in the support of this earth up through the soles of the feet, allowing that energy to rise gently and easily all the way through the body. And exhaling again, bringing some relaxation to shoulders and jaw, hips. And breathing in again, this time extending your belly as you breathe. And on your last exhale, just letting everything go. And then coming back into the space here gently. As I always say, every Monday, I could spend an hour there. That was fun. That was fun. Okay, so first things first, we're going to pull three cards for the week. December 8th, 2025. When did that happen? Right? So, yes, the second week of December 2025. All right. So, first card is a card we had last week, but in a different position. Not that I necessarily look at the positions of the cards, as you know, I just look at the cards. But here we have the Six of Wands. And your job is to just look at that card, put yourself somewhere. You could be the wreath, you could be the torch, you could be the light, you could be the person. But put yourself in that card and ask yourself, what is the story that it's telling me? How do I feel in that card? What's the message? I've always liked this card. I like it in all the decks, and that's a fun one. She does a great job. So this is, for those of you that don't know, this is the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann. And our second card, hopefully you're, ooh, always an interesting card to get. It's the Devil card. Um, I am not surprised. I get this card quite frequently. It's kind of blurry. Anyway, all right, same thing. What is your story? What's here for you? How is this supportive for you? Because remember, all the cards are here for support. They're all here to guide. So I know what I'm thinking. I've got plenty of thoughts. So remember, Angelus Arian's Tarot Handbook is my go-to book, especially for this card. So if you don't have that, I'll put something in the follow-up email. But I first want you to just have your own response. Where are you in this card? Okay, next card. Oh, such interesting cards today. Okay, so Ten of Pentacles. Beautiful card. All the cards have just incredible artwork, of course. Where are you in this card? How does this feel? What's happening? What's here for support? And a lot of you who know the tarot can probably see the story as it unfolds. But if you don't know the tarot, the important thing is to understand what is the story that's unfolding for you right now, right? That really is the point of using these cards. I mean, sure, we can use them. If we want to, we can use them for prediction. If we want to, we can use them for guidance with, some support from one of the guidebooks. But ultimately, your intuition. This is a great activation for intuition. That's your dog. It is your dog. Amazing. I love it. All right. So let's just do a little quick astrology. Um, As you know, we just had a really big full moon, right? Like I know it doesn't change size, it's how it appears, right? Beautiful, still quite large, actually, even though we're in the waning phases of it. So the moon has shifted signs, Mercury shifts signs, um, Saturn is now direct. So what does this all mean? What does this all mean? What does it all mean? It means that it's an important time right now, today, to begin to look at how we are how are we holding ourselves? What is it that we are doing for ourselves that is supportive, that is energized? Sun is in Sagittarius. The moon is in Leo today. Pretty cool. There's a lot of creative fire energy. Mercury will be going into Sagittarius soon, but it's not quite there. Venus is in Sagittarius. Mars is in Sagittarius. So I think today, I think we should talk about Sagittarius. I don't want to let this moment slip by. What is Sagittarius energy? For many of us, when we think of Sagittarians, we think of someone who's playful, someone who loves nature, someone who loves animals, particularly horses. When we think of Sagittarius, sometimes the shadow is they say Sagittarians don't want to grow up. They just want to be the ultimate Peter Pan is one of the things that gets tossed around in astrology literature around Sagittarius. As someone with a Sagittarius moon, I somewhat take a little offense at this. Not that I dislike Peter Pan, but this whole idea of not wanting to take responsibility. I think what it is instead, so here are my thoughts on the Sagittarius energy. It is playful and it is creative and it is fun. And we need that going into Capricorn energy because we need the inspiration. We need that connection before we get to work. The Capricorn energy says, let's get to work. So, little side note, the Devil card is actually a Capricorn card, just in case you were wondering. And generally speaking, in the tarot, we are asked to look at, are we working too hard? Are we working too little? What is our relationship to life? What is our relationship to living? So that's coming up through that card, but it reminds me that the reason we have Sagittarius now is to be able to take that joy. There's a particular joy in the Sagittarius, and bring that joy with us into the dark of winter. Because remember, the solstice starts on the first day of Capricorn, right? That's how we get the winter solstice here. Now, obviously, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're having your summer solstice, but we're having our winter solstice. And so understanding the energy of what does it mean to live? So we take our cues from right now. We take our cues from the energy of the planets right now. And in terms of a general, how do I want to say this? In terms of like how the planets are interacting right now, one of the things that I like to look at is who's talking to who. It's always, I mean, that's just how it works for me. Who's speaking to whom? How are they connecting? What's happening? Um, who's in retrograde? I think again, just as a reminder, one of the things that is really, really important um, going forward is to remember that the Neptune-Saturn connection, they're very connected right now. They just happen to both be in Pisces. Okay, so you're going to hear me talking about Neptune and Saturn for quite a while as they take their journey, as they get to 0 degrees of Aries in February. The reason this is such a big deal is because even though they come together at different times in different signs, and they've certainly been in Aries in the last 1,000 years, but what hasn't happened is they haven't been at 0 degree Aries together in tens of thousands of years. Okay, that's a big deal. And so, what are we doing now? We're deepening, we're connecting, we're saying, what spiritual practices do I want to take with me as I move into more action next year? Okay. And as a collective, what do we want to take with us? How much compassion can you cultivate right now? How much love can you cultivate right now? How much vision for a better future can you cultivate right now? Okay. So we have right now in Sagittarius, big inspiration. So, especially today with the moon in Leo, um, I'm going to recommend for all of us that you do something fun, do something playful, and that you let yourself be inspired. What does it mean to feel inspired? And if you're struggling with that right now, which totally understand if you are, but if you are, call a friend. Ask someone, what would you do for inspiration? Sagittarius energy often says take a trip. It can be a long, it can be take, go far away. You can go close by. But as someone with the Sagittarius moon, one thing that I used to say was, I need to run away from home for a day. Where would I go? And sometimes I only had like a half a day, so I would go to the park and play in the park for a while. But sometimes I'll go to Mount Shasta because that's only an hour and 15 minutes away. That's where I might run away from home, is to go. I don't really have to run away from home so much anymore, but there was an era. I'll just be honest. It was a long time ago, but there was an era. Um, so there we go. That is all I'm going to say for this week because I really want to talk to Nicole because she's been beautifully sitting here. So, Nicole, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight you and I'm going to bring you on. And I'm going to tell stories about Nicole now. Nicole and I met. Okay, let's think about this. When did we officially meet?
Oh my gosh. I think, was it in London or in Birmingham?
Or was it in San Antonio?
No, I've never been to those summits, so it
Okay,
must
so
have
it must have been
been
officially in person in
officially in
Birmingham.
the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, Nicole we've been in each other's orbits for a while now. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to someone who is really here to support, to guide, to help women deepen into their journey with themselves. And Nicole, I'm going to just put out there first, like anything else you want to say about yourself, and then I'll talk about why we're here.
Yeah, of course. So officially, I guess you could say I'm a writer, a yoga instructor, and a Reiki master. And the reason why I got into my woman's work, you can say, is through my own experience when I was an editor in New York City. I developed a sudden chronic illness in my womb. I developed a bunch of cysts on my womb and also in my breasts, so all of my feminine parts. And at the time, I was kind of like just really upset at my body for getting sick and not being able to keep up, you could say. I was
Hmm.
doing my dream. I was interviewing celebrities. I was writing for some of the best magazines in the world. I was like doing the thing in New York City, you know? But yeah, it turns out that wasn't my path. And it really took this like physical illness to bring me on a journey of healing. So it wasn't quick. There was about 3 to 4 years where I was developing these chronic cysts and having to go into the ER, surgeries and whatnot. And finally, I decided that I just have to heal. I remember being on my floor in New York City and my Reiki master on the phone with me. We're having a remote session, and she's like, do you think that New York City is just not for you and this path of magazine writing? And I was sobbing. I'm like, what do you mean? Like my whole identity was just shattering.
Oh,
So anyway, I decided she's probably right and I would have to just start new, start over. So I had a meeting with my editor-in-chief at the time and I said to her, I said, "Hey, I gotta heal." I said, "I have a flight booked to Hawaii in 3 weeks, and I'm gonna leave this all behind right now. I have to prioritize my health." So she ended up dedicating her January 2022 editor's letter in Prevention Magazine to that decision, which surprised me. I thought they were gonna cancel me from the industry. And on top of it, 1 hour later, I received a call from a publisher in Hawaii, and he offered me a job. And then his roommate offered me, or his assistant offered me a place to live.
wow.
So all of that happened within an hour of each other, you know?
Wow.
And then when I arrived to Hawaii, all of my cysts disappeared, my anxiety, my health made, I never have had an ovarian cyst again. So that is what kind of inspired me to get into this work because I lived it in my body. I had to learn to slow down to
Yeah.
understand my body as a woman and to understand that this kind of 9 to 5 rat race in New York City it was like the opposite of what at least my body needed
Mhm.
to thrive in a feminine way. So that's how I discovered cyclical living and all of the women's work. So yeah.
Gosh, I love that so much. And thank you so much for sharing that story. And there are some people who have met you before. I'm sure they have not heard that story before, not yet.
Not yet.
Um,
Yeah.
I know you've written about it, but it is an important part of why we've come together, partly because and a lot of people here may not know about my other work, that I teach a practice for women, a physical movement and spiritual meditation practice that supports women on the journey of deepening into themselves through the body's wisdom. And so it's called Sensuous Wisdom. You'll see it on my tagline if you get an email from me. And if you've ever wondered what that is, um, it's something that allows us to deepen our senses and to connect with ourselves as women. So you can imagine when I met Nicole, you were living in Hawaii at the time. See, we just hadn't met in person, but we had met in passing through some common friends that some of you know. I don't know that all of you, I think everyone here knows Warwick and Robin Schiller, and Tyler is their son. If you haven't met Tyler, he's a wonderful human. And he and Nicole are now engaged. So I mean, you know, I'm very happy to say that that's a great journey too, because if you hadn't moved to Hawaii,
I wouldn't
you
have met
wouldn't have met
Tyler.
Tyler.
It's
So,
true.
and then I wouldn't have met you. So, well, we might have met, but who knows? You know what I'm saying? But I do appreciate the vulnerability of your story because a lot of us, and it can come in so many different forms. It can come in living a life path that we don't like, and then something happens and we make a shift. Or in your case, you were living your dream.
I thought I was, yeah, as
Yeah.
a young 20-year-old interviewing all these celebrities, and
Mhm.
I didn't even have a journalism degree. I kind of just like fought really hard and worked hard, you know? That
Mhm.
was the formula, and it proved to work. So then I was confused. I'm like, what do you mean? I worked so hard, but that is not the feminine way, is what I'm
Mhm.
realizing. There are times to work towards our goals and to, you know, have aligned action towards what we know as our dharma and how we're supposed to like give back to the world. But then there is the feminine piece that we tend to forget, which is kind of what Denise was saying with the Sagittarius energy of the play and the inspiration and the slowing down. Like if we don't have space for the creative information and insight to come through, then it won't come through, you know?
Hmm. It's true. Spaciousness is key. And Nicole knows me well enough now to know that I don't always practice what I preach. So, to be fair, I do not always practice what I preach, but it is true when I am deeply in my practice, which I do for myself. I haven't been teaching it very often publicly, but I have small groups that I do this practice with, and then I do it for myself. The spaciousness of going into what is for women the power, and actually for all humans, the power center is in the sacral area of the body. So for 20, how many years has it been? 24 and a half years now, I have been practicing this womb space meditation at the power center. And I can tell those of you that are gathered here and anyone listening that it was not an easy journey to go in. And not unlike Nicole, um, there have been many a time where I've been going through tests and all kinds of things because, oh, you have extra things growing in places that don't seem, whether it's the uterus or the ovaries or the whatever. So, and this is not an uncommon journey for women. You know, it's part of a journey. And for women who, and we have someone here who's about to give birth very soon. For women who are on that journey, your womb space becomes very obvious, very straightforwardly. And for women my age, um, very much into menopause. Thank you for sharing that. Um, in the menopause years, we still have cycles and rhythms that we can check into. So, Nicole, I'm curious for you. I mean, this was a big departure, and yet you've always been attracted to the healing, to the feminine. This is not, so how did one take over and the other kind of go into the background, and how did you bring it back? And what was your journey with weaving all these pieces together?
Well, I think that the initiations with my womb started really young. I had a hernia repair also when I was in first grade in my pelvis.
Mhm.
And I remember actually looking back then in fifth grade, I had a scrapbook. And I remember there was a little page in there from the health class. You know, we have like our
Mhm.
normal, that's when you learn about when you have your period for the first time. And
Oh, right,
I
fifth
had a
grade.
scrapbook page of like a tampon and a pad from fifth grade. So I was just like, it seemed that this journey was almost foreshadowing what would come later.
Yeah.
But of course, I couldn't have ever like guessed the way that this journey would bring me. It really wasn't until I got sick in those parts of myself that made me question why. Like I was like, of all the places I could get sick, why? And I knew that there is our physical body. There's like a
Mhm.
hormonal component to this, a biological component of this, you know? But then there's the other layers. Okay, what are the mental components of this? What thoughts am I ruminating, you know, through? What traumas emotionally am I holding from my childhood, from my mother wounds, the lineage in my family? What is getting stored and stuck there? So there is a lot of different layers to this. Then there's the spiritual and the dharmic component. Then, okay, this is an initiation, and this is like actually what you're here to kind of share about women. But if you take me as a person, this wouldn't have almost made sense like
Mhm.
7 years ago at all. Like it
Mhm.
was like I felt like I was coming out of the closet when I got to Hawaii, and I'm like,
Oh, I can
oh my
really
gosh,
understand that.
talking about
Yeah.
my womb, like I was so scared. But you know, I also feel like there's a moment happening now, I can see this, where not only are women starting to become educated about our cycles, and I'm not just talking about bleeding women. I'm also
Mhm.
talking about women who are premenopause, who are in menopause, who are
Mhm.
postmenopause. Not only are we beginning to understand what's happening because of the really large amount of pain that we're also experiencing, and then we had to be quiet about. But
Mhm.
we're also beginning to ritualize our
Mhm.
bodies and to understand how are we made up biologically and how does this affect us and how can we live our lives each day or each week, depending on which, cycle you're in your life. And that can really help us find this balance and inner harmony. And to go even further, there is an alignment with the earth that we've been
Yes.
unplugged to. And, earth has her seasons. If you think about earth, you can almost think of her as a feminine energy because she flows through these seasons. And actually, so do we as menstruating, if we're menstruating women, we have we have a follicular phase, which is mimicked to spring in nature. Same thing happens in our body. We begin to develop these little cysts. We spring, we bud, and then summer energy. Summer is very vivacious. It's outward, it's energizing. Okay, when we are, ovulating, that's exactly what's happening in our bodies because of the high amount of estrogen that we have.
Mhm.
Luteal phase is comparable to autumn. When we begin to shed, we begin to get quiet, things slow down. And then, of course, when we bleed, that is the winter. That is winter in nature. So we were talking about winter because we're entering this winter season and we can really find alignment, harmony inwardly and outwardly by connecting with nature and her seasons. And by the way, if you're not bleeding, you have integrated all of the phases of the menstrual cycle. They're all within you. You could say that you are the wise woman now because all of them live within you. And then you get to flow through the seasons, let's say energetically, because
Mhm.
they are all within you to help you find balance.
Exactly. They're hardwired into the body, into the soul. It's pretty amazing, actually. I will say perimenopause is can be very challenging. And so with all my different hats on, astrologically, we're going through a phase that is one of the hardest planetary Chiron return. For those of you that have been there, you're going through it around the same time that perimenopause is either really taking hold or just beginning. And so I sometimes it's hard to kind of tease out which which one's which. But I will say for my own journey, having a practice for being in the womb space, understanding, and we'll get into something else that you do in just a moment, understanding other things that can help with balancing the body had made a lot of difference for me. There were other things that I chose to do. Chinese medicine was one of them. There's all kinds of paths for the perimenopausal journey, and any other journey we're having. But I think having a practice and an understanding of cycles and rhythms is really key. And I love how you said that it lives within. I like to use the moon as a way to honor that for myself. And then the bigger picture is to use the weather, the climate. And for me, having a Celtic background, solstices, cross quarter days, they're all really powerful. And we can utilize the energy of that and connect into our bodies. It's like women have been doing this forever, forever and ever. So why not us? Because we live in a culture that demands that we get up, we do this, we do that, we do that. Do we want to keep doing that? Or, I don't know. You're right. Okay, I'm curious about this. This is just a side note. Why Hawaii? How did you know to go there?
Well, I went there a few months before I made that decision just for a vacation, and I looked around and I just saw a completely different lifestyle. I
Mhm.
saw people outside in the middle of the
Mhm.
week. I saw family and people in community. I saw spiritual practices, and I saw a slower pace of living, you could say. It was
Mhm.
completely opposite of New York City in every
Oh,
way.
yeah, that
And
makes
then I
sense.
noticed everyone seemed really happy and very fit and healthy. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay, there's something to this. And of
yeah,
course, like tropical living, you could say like that we vacation there, right? But like,
yeah.
how can we also like take elements of that lifestyle and bring it into our everyday lives? There's a reason why people go and vacation there. It's like, okay, you can finally exhale.
Hmm.
So and on top of it, Hawaii is a very spiritual place and, yoga is really important there. So there was a lot of reasons that drew me there, but the lifestyle
Hmm.
just felt like it would be, medicine to teach me and then obviously influence my work and how I live
Hmm.
my life
Hmm.
now.
And there's a million things I want to talk about, but kind of on that same note, you've moved from Hawaii.
Mhm.
Has it been a year?
Yes, it has actually. Next week, it's been a year.
Okay. So you've moved from Hawaii
Mhm.
back to the mainland. How is it bringing that energy into a different climate?
Well, I think it would be harder to do in a place like New York City, we
Mhm.
should say, or like a very urban environment, but there are still like different ways that you can incorporate, I guess, a slower paced lifestyle into your everyday life. Like for me, I think about it now, like when I'm making my to-do list, I have it right next to me. There's things that I have to do, that are like obligations. And
Mhm.
then I also add to that list obligations in my self-care. So just as I would brush my teeth, I am also going to either journal, take a few deep breaths in the morning, or go for a walk. It doesn't need to be all of those things, but
Mhm.
like this is an obligation and it's something that I can't bypass, just like I would
Mhm.
not go outside without brushing my teeth in the morning.
Yeah.
So I think there's like elements, and this looks different for everybody because we've all tried different holistic practices or self-care rituals that help us feel good. And it could be as a little bit like just carving out time in your day to do nothing, and that's really
Exactly.
hard to do. You almost have to make it an obligation to yourself. That's the commitment and the vow to giving yourself time to nurture.
Exactly. And as we move toward winter solstice, the days are getting much longer. And the the real challenge in the culture that not so much maybe you and I live in, but the culture in general, um, people are still getting up. They're going to work in the dark. Kids are going to school in the dark. Some kids are even coming home from school in the dark. Um, the darkness is that time where we want to sit and create the spaciousness. And so you and I we've created, and there's so many things I want to talk about. We've created a series called Living in Rhythm, which it has a lot to do with living in the rhythm with the actual physical seasons. But the winter solstice celebration ceremony that we want to do and are doing on the 20th, this is an opportunity in the middle of the day on a Saturday to deepen, to relax, to open, to connect, to listen. I'm very excited. Nicole, we're going to come back to that in a minute. Nicole, can you talk a little bit about the oils?
Yes, I would absolutely love to. So I created a wellness brand called Muse Essence, and this is a wellness brand that inspires women to find balance with their bodies, their wombs, and to also inspire rituals of self-love and healing. So I have essential oil rollers. I have them all actually right here. So here's the winter moon roller. I always run into this blurry problem,
No, you
but
did well. That's
I
good.
didn't this time. But yeah, I have an essential oil roller for each season. So all the ingredients, seasonally are inspired by the elements of nature. They're all researched back to what we can find,
Mhm.
because obviously there's not a lot of science, but then energetically, they all hold components that can inspire us to stay connected to whatever season we're experiencing. So, of course, if somebody is bleeding, they can flow through these like with their menstrual cycle
Yeah,
each
the whole
week in a
month.
month.
Yeah.
However, they can also be used intentionally and also like just throughout the entire season of nature that you're experiencing. So, like, for example, the autumn nurture roller, it has lavender, chamomile, clary sage, and frankincense. And of course, it's going to be really soothing. So, like, I use that one at night, no
All the
matter where
time,
I am.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
the time, whenever you
Yeah.
need a deep breath. And I have other ritual-based oils like that can inspire, connection with your sacral chakra and your creative energy and your feminine parts. I have like a womb oil, for example, and then I have a Venus face mist. So this has rose and
Oh, yeah,
geranium.
that's good.
I love this. It's blessed with Reiki and the Divine Mother energy. And it also is matched to the pH levels of your skin, so it can help naturally tone. And of course, rose is a very like naturally
Very feminine.
anti-inflammatory
Yeah, yeah, it's
ingredient.
so good.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a raffle. If you can stay around till the end, you'll be automatically entered into the raffle after we go off camera or off recording. We'll be on camera. We'll just go off recording. So Nicole has generously offered to for our ceremony on the 20th. Anyone who signs up for that will be receiving the winter roller. So we are going to have registration. We'll have to close about a week ahead. So we've only got 2 weeks left of registration for this group that we're creating. And I'm very excited. We're bringing the best of who we are in 2 hours. We were originally, it was going to be 4 hours because we could probably have it for 3 days. But, whatever. So we're going to bring the best of both of us for 2 hours. I will cover some astrology for 2026 just to kind of set the stage. Nicole is going to lead us through some extraordinary. There's so much. Like I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it in a very spacious manner. There's nutrition, there's journal exercises, there's movement, there's meditation. And I'm coming back to the practice that I teach. One of the things I do like about the slowing down practice, because that's really what it is, it's a slower than slow practice. You can do it anywhere in the world. So I have been in line at the post office. Okay, I have to admit, the DMV, I can't quite get there. But at the post office, I can be in line and just be in my pelvic rocking, which is part of the movement practice. It's very internal. No one else can see it. I'm just in my womb space, standing in line, doing my micro movement pelvic rocking from that still point, and I'm calm and relaxed for the 40 minutes that I need to stand in line at the post office in a small town, because that's what happens. Um, I have used it at other times too. I did DMV, I just haven't been able to lately. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Anyway, we are bringing some of that to our ceremony on the 20th. Nicole, what else would you like to say about the upcoming event?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing, I think you mentioned this briefly, it's like cultures used to celebrate these turning points of the seasons,
Yes.
at the solstice and the equinoxes, and there's a reason for that. These are powerful, potent portals where if we choose to align with the energy, like my one of my favorite quotes from my friend Nabalo is rest is not a break from the rhythm, it's a return to it. And if we really understand what that means, when we go against resting and finding time to slow down, we are unplugging ourselves from, the ability to achieve natural harmony.
Yeah.
So I think of the winter solstice ceremony as that. We are going to align with the energies of winter instead of, rebel against it and
Yes.
resist. What
Yeah.
if we actually leaned in? And that might be uncomfortable and hard. A part
Yeah.
of us is like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
But we can find so much alignment in that. And then when we get still enough, when we let ourselves pause, that is the moments where the veil becomes thin, where we can really tap into our intuition. We can hear the wisdom from, whatever higher power you connect with and see what wants to come through. The winter season is the time to shed, to let things go. It is the energy of rooting to rise. We work on the foundation from the ground
Yeah.
so that our roots can grow strong. And then when we enter in the cycle of spring, with the spring equinox, which we'll have another ceremony for that in March, then we can begin to rise up from that. So it's like this Living in Rhythm series it's a building point. We start at the root and we continue to grow together at all of these cycles throughout the year and we support each other. We water our seeds of intention, we shed, we support, and then we align and we bloom.
Exactly. I love that. And for me, having set aside time, ceremony, even though we are going to be facilitating it, it still slows my body down because of the practices that I have in my life. Just even talking about it, I can feel how my body just slows down. I drop deeper into my womb space, which is the power center. I drop into that very slower than slow rhythm, and I'm already there. And this is why often I think we teach a lot of what we all need to learn. And you were on a journey, and this journey has been going on obviously a long time. But because you turned this into a professional, this is I mean, this is not the only thing you do, but it is a big part of what you have to offer now. And how does that feel?
It feels a little bit like a black sheep syndrome, like coming from the East Coast and then embracing this. And this was a time too, by the way, when when I was going through my cysts, like people
Mm.
weren't talking about womb. They weren't talking
No,
about, anything with
maybe,
your
yeah,
menstrual
maybe not
cycle. Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even yoga wasn't really like embraced as much, or
Mhm.
Reiki. These were kind of like hush hush things. So, to me, it feels a little bit rebellious, but it feels like a remembering and it feels like a reclamation of my personal, divine feminine energy and also the lineage of my family. Like, I'm okay with like knowing that when I embrace some of these questions and talk about this stuff, that it's going to bring up discomfort in people at the same time.
Mhm.
It's also going to inspire people to think about, okay, why am I a little uncomfortable right now? Like, what programming have I received about having a womb and having a dirty period or hiding my tampon string,
Mhm.
like things like that. So it gets us to really question and inspire. And it can all be, a process. A lot of this stuff doesn't happen overnight. This is years and also lineages of
Mhm.
programming. And it's gonna be a little bit of a journey, but it's an awakening and it's
Yeah.
just becoming a part of the journey, like taking a step onto the path is the first start.
Exactly. Oh, I appreciate that so much. And we have a question in the chat. And yes, drop questions in the chat if you have them. This question is about hormones. Neither Nicole nor I are qualified to particularly talk about hormones for anyone other than ourselves, I suppose. But I do have an expert that I can bring on to have that conversation with people. But what I would like to say, and Nicole, you can back me up on this, the movement practices, the slowing down practices, um, not even putting in the oils yet, but the movement practices and the slowing down practices, they absolutely do affect your endocrine system. Now, neither of us are doctors or have studied in that realm, but I can guarantee you that they do change things. Hormone therapy, I I'm just going to answer this for myself. I'm not going to answer it for anyone else. I was told to never do it. I grew up in an era where it was like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. It's bad for you. Turns out it's great. So I'm really quite enjoying it. It's very minimal. I do work with a functional medicine doctor who's very holistic. So it's how you work with this. It's really not doing something that's across the board for everyone. It's really coming into somebody who's going to listen to you and listen to your body. We actually also have in our group today, we have someone I know who uses homeopathy, naturopathic medicine, who teaches that, who understands this. We have in our community some incredible people that we could bring on to talk about that. But Nicole, the oils, let's talk a little bit about that because they do affect the body.
Yes, I really do believe that. A lot of them are medicinally crafted with
Mhm.
earth-based wisdom, I say. So, like for example, if you are, let's take the ritual of womb massage. Let's just
Mhm.
start there.
Mhm.
Anybody can do this at any age, any stage, and there will be benefits. Our uterus is an organ. It is a muscle. So it gets tight, just like you would stretch out your legs. If your legs get tight, we also have to stretch out our uterus, especially if you are someone that is bleeding or, post-birth, like these muscles can get really tight and then there could be scar tissue and things to kind of like move around. So the warming womb oil, my massage oil for the womb specifically, it has ginger, it has black pepper, it has cinnamon, and then it's balanced out with like rose and other ingredients, clary sage, that can really help stimulate blood flow in the uterus because we want blood flow in the uterus. That is going to help us on a lot of different levels, but specifically, it can help. This is the area where, your hormones in conjunction with your brain are all kind of like coordinated. So we want a healthy uterus that it has healthy circulation, basically.
Yes.
And then going specifically more off of the question, I know that Robin and Heidi is a functional medicine practitioner. They have a whole podcast on the Journey On
Yes,
podcast
they do. Yes.
about menopause. And so maybe Denise can share that if anybody wants to go deeper, but she would be definitely more of an expert as well to talk on the hormone fluctuations. But at the end of the day, like Denise said, I feel like you got to think about how you want to feel in your body. And everybody is so unique. Like there were times when I was like, you know, I'm not going to have this surgery. But then I talked to my Reiki master to remove an ovarian cyst. And she's like, okay, well, guess what? We kind of need to have the surgery, like this is actually dangerous. And you have to like think about that acute medicine can also save our lives. And it
Mhm.
does, as long as we couple, you know, the longevity of our connection. So
Mhm.
like you can practice rituals like essential oils, like womb massage and other rituals of connection to maintain a healthy connection with your womb and a healthy
Yes.
biological makeup of your womb.
Yeah, and why are we not taught womb massage from the time we're just little, right?
That's a great
I
question.
mean, I mean, seriously, I have some of Nicole's oil and I love it. But, Nicole, it's clear you're going to have a workshop on womb massage that everyone can sign up for. But I mean, and there are actually practitioners and who you can go to who can physically teach you in person. And Nicole could actually do that in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will start to think about all of this stuff when they are, preparing for pregnancy, for example. That's kind of the first
Mhm.
time where we start to put our focus on our wounds, outside of like when we're bleeding and
Mhm.
we want the pain to stop,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's an invitation to, okay, like, why is that the case? Like, there
Mhm.
must be some deeper magic that this can hold.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why not everybody knows about this. This
Mhm.
is why there's only 4% of NIH funding that is put into menstrual health care
Yes.
and reproductive research.
Yes. Yeah.
And on top of it, there's so many millions of women who experience illness, pain, disease in our reproductive system. And yet we can't even point to any research. Like, I wish I could show you research for my essential oils, for example, a
Right.
more medicinal route,
Oh
to
yeah.
help.
Oh no, naturopathic physicians have your back here. I mean, this is something they have been studying. You know, um, Reproductive gynecological cancers are the least funded, studied cancers on the planet. And unfortunately, we have people in our community who are currently really struggling with that. Um, there, for a lot of us, it runs in the family. And so, what can we do as women, very beautifully articulated by you, what can we do for ourselves starting now? Like, what can we do to really take care of our bodies? And then, like you said, because you've been on that journey and I've been on that journey, how can we take care of ourselves? And if something needs to come out, it needs to come out. And that is not my favorite thing, but it does happen. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And that it came from your Reiki master teacher, which I think is great. And Nicole, you also do Reiki. I mean, that is an offering you have as well. So if someone, I mean, outside of our ceremony, if someone wants to contact you, they can go to your website and send you an email. Yes?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And I do remote Reiki sessions as well. It is equally as potent. I've actually been receiving Reiki from the same Reiki master since I was in high school. So this is like 16 years now.
Yeah, okay.
And
So how did you even come up with that in high school? I wish I had thought of this in high school.
that's a great question. Well, I had some family trauma issues, like things that I needed to address, and I didn't have any avenues of understanding where to get that. I'm the oldest of four daughters, so I was the one who had to kind of figure things out myself, and I was always connected to spirituality. Like if anybody knows Doreen Virtue, I had her very hard to find angel cards now.
They're very hard
Um,
because she changed.
yes, yes, yes,
But she and I have
exactly.
the same birthday, just so you know.
Oh, no way. Oh
Yes
my
way.
gosh. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yes, I was a big fan of all of that work. So anyway, I was always like walking into crystal shops and I was inspired, and this was going off of having like extrasensory intuitive abilities when I was a kid and a little bit of
That's
clairvoyance. So
beautiful.
I was always a little bit scared of it. But
Mhm.
anyway, I was looking for, therapy, but I understood like I need more than just mental therapy. I know that I even knew back then, I guess, that there is like energetic components to
You
everything
did.
that
You
I
knew
really
it.
wanted to work through. So that is how I found Reiki. And because each Reiki session, we would kind of like jump between the different layers. Some days I really did need work in my mental layer. I needed to talk through stuff. I needed clarity. I needed to get all of this like mental energy purged, and organized. And then other days I needed to be in my emotions. I needed to remove blocks so I could just cry and release and let that out. And then, other days I needed to connect with like my soul and to feel my own light and radiance within. And yeah, Reiki helped me, connect with all of that. And it became like my therapy and it changed my life for 16 plus years and counting. So,
Amazing. I love it. I love it. And it's we come into what we need when we come into it. When I was 33 years old, um, was when things started to shift in my world. I had, like you've been very spiritual my whole life, been doing numerology since I was, what, 10, and astrology I grew up with. So and then growing up on the West Coast versus growing up on the East Coast. So my family, East Coast family, moves to the West Coast. So I'm growing up in a West Coast home, very different. I'm a very long time ago in the 1970s watching PBS yoga classes and being able to do them with Lilius on PBS when I'm really little, not understanding the whole picture. Like you have a real understanding of it, all of it because you're a trained yoga instructor. Um, but I was like, taking it all in, the reincarnation, the astrology, all of that. And even then, because of just how we live and how we're enculturated, I kept pushing it underground, pushing it away. So it's not a surprise that by the time I'm in my 30s, I'm having womb space problems because I'm pushing myself away. I'm pushing down away. I'm still doing psychic work. I did a lot, my mediumship work really took off in my 20s and 30s. So I was already doing that work, but I was ignoring myself, my body, my path, my rhythms. And so the practice that I now teach, I learned in my 30s. And so that has taken, this 25 plus years. It's been a while, but I've traveled with it for a long time and I'm really grateful. So that's what we're bringing. We're bringing a lot to the ceremony. Um, we are not going to try to cram in. We are creating spaciousness, and there will be extra things that will be sent to people during the course of that season, so that you'll have that. Um, Nicole, do you have anything else you want to say before we do the raffle?
no, I think the only other thing was we're going to be sending a winter moon oil to everybody who signs up. And we're also going to send a recorded yin yoga class. So it's going to be all themed around winter energy. And the guidance that you'll receive, through the 2 hour window, there is going to be seasonal guidance in terms of like nutrition that can help your body physically and also lifestyle rituals. So everything that you learn that are just suggestions in this 2 hour ceremony we're going to hold, you're going to be able to take with you and practice it and cultivate it, throughout the entire cycle of winter. So it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving because you'll have it with you.
I love that so much. Nicole, if you're comfortable, we like to talk a little bit about astrology of our guests when you're comfortable. Can you tell us where your moon is
My moon is in Aquarius.
and your sun?
My sun is also in Aquarius.
So Nicole was born under a new moon, which is also its own rhythm. We all have a moon cycle that we have been born under. So that's a whole other class. That's a whole other thing. But, again, so for you, Nicole, having a new moon energy makes so much sense. I was born more into the full moon energy. So we
Mm,
we find that balance with each other, which is really cool.
yes.
Um, Okay, we should do the raffle, which means I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to thank everyone who's been listening, who is either here with us now or uh, is listening later. I love this. Nicole, you and I could just talk for days, and we
We're
will.
really good.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Okay, let me turn that off.